So some people have been asking how to create a double page spread with a letter spilling over from one page to the next, like this R here, and like this C here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the letter G, and I'm going to do something similar to what this designer has done here. Crop the C and spilled parts over to the other two pages. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Illustrator, create new, and I'm going to make sure that I set up the same dimensions in the Illustrator file as what I'm going to do in the next step in InDesign. So I'm just going to go with a simple 8.5 by 11 portrait format for my double page spread. So here's my artboard that's 8.5 by 11. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the artboard, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key, press and hold the Alt key down and slide that artboard over and put those artboards side by side. I'm using the arrow keys to make a little slight adjustments to the position of the artboard here. So I use the arrow side to side arrows there to toggle the artboard. So now I have the artboard side by side, and it gives me a rough idea of how my double page is going to look inside of a program like InDesign. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the type tool, click and drag that type over, hit the letter G. I'm going to need that G to be a lot bigger, 500. Select the G. So I'm going to go to the scale tool here. So if I use the scale tool, I can just keep holding the shift key and scaling that up as opposed to trying to figure out the exact points that I'm going to make the letter. So get that roughly where I want. I'm going to copy Control or Command C and paste that, Control or Command V. So I'm just going to go to my layers here, turn the one off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go type, and I'm going to create outlines. So once I go to the create outline, I find it a lot easier to scale it up as I need to. So hold the shift key down. Once the outlines are created, your letter will be a lot easier to scale. I like how this is coming right off the page, and there'll be some negative space there and there. But I'd also like this to come off the page. So I skew the, so I just stretch the proportion out there to get that off. I'm not sure quite what I think of that. But if I go to the white arrow tool here and then shift select some of these anchor points, so shift select those anchor points, then grab it and drag it off, I can actually just thicken that edge there and just drag it off a little bit. Now that this is a bit thicker, I'm going to see what it's like if I thicken up this part of the G. So select, hold down the shift key, select the other anchor point, drag that up a little bit higher. Now I've done that. Maybe thicken this one up a little bit. Hold down the shift key, select that, let go, start dragging. Hold the shift key down again, lock that into position. And maybe just bring it back in a touch. Once you start making these changes, sometimes they can take a lot of time. And now I'm just going around and making slight adjustments. Okay, so I think that's good enough to give you an idea about slightly customizing the proportion of your letter. Now it's time to cut this other stuff away that I don't like. There's a couple ways that I could do this. I could go down here, click the eraser tool, it gives me access to the scissor tool. I could go and start scissoring this away, and then go to the white arrow tool, select that area, hit delete and delete. Then I'm going to select this anchor point, shift select the other anchor point across, right click and join those together. And the other way to do it is to use the Pathfinder. So open up the Pathfinder, go to a simple rectangular tool. I'm going to make the rectangle tool, that is selected, shift select the letter, and then use the cut area here in the Pathfinder to cut that away. So you don't have dangling parts and start using white to hide things. So same format, locked in place there, shift select and cut. And repeat. Shift select and cut. And then you can start making some fast design decisions. Maybe I don't want this leg here pulling across, so I'm going to pull it over and see what that looks like. Anchor point, shift select the other anchor point. What I'm not wanting to happen is this part here that's trailing off. I want that completely cropped off, so I'm going to make some adjustments here. So I'm just going to grab that anchor point, see if I can get away with just pulling it up and a little bit off the page and see if that doesn't distort things too much. So go back to the rectangular tool, click and drag, lock that into place, shift select the letter. Now this wasn't working, this minus cut area, so I've got to go down here to trim. So I click the trim, then go to the white arrow tool, click off of both shapes, then click the rectangle tool and delete. And now I have that trimmed. So now I'm going to select this and shift select these two parts and move them over to the other page here. So I pulled that over. I feel like that's too far. I'm going to adjust this and bring this back. So if I'm happy with how the G is now looking in Illustrator, I'm going to want to move this complete part over here to this artboard to keep them both separate. I'm going to move them over to this part. It's going to export the parts of the G in the different artboards, and it will create two separate PNG files for me to bring into InDesign. So the next step is to go File, Export, and Export as, PNG, use artboards, Export. This is going to be for print, so 300 pixels per inch. Make sure that the background is transparent, and okay.